Everybody's disappointed. If the heavens ever did speak, she's the last true mouthpiece. Every Sunday's getting more bleak. Fresh poison each week. We were born sick, you heard them say it. My church offers no absolutes. It tells me what's up in the big book. Only heaven I was sent to. Spend time alone with you. I was born sick, but I love it. Command me to be well. Amen. 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 Take me to church, I worship like a dog. Trying to get light, I'll tell you my sins, and you can open your night. For me, there's nothing to go. Let me give you my life. Take me to church, I worship like a dog at the sign of your light. I'll tell you my sins, and you can open your night. For me, there's nothing to go. Let me give you my life. If I'm a pagan of the good church, my love is the sunlight. To keep the goddess on my side, she demands a sacrifice. Bring the whole sea, get something shiny, something meaningful to main course. Next to find a looking high horse. What you got in the table? See the look of sovereign favor. Let them taste it, let them spend it. This is hungry work. Take me to church. I worship like a dog at the sign of your life. Love tell you my sins, and you can sharpen your knife. I'm gonna need it. Let me go. Let me give you my life. Take me to church. I worship like a dog at the sign of your life. Love tell you my sins, and you can sharpen your knife. I'm gonna need it. Just let me go. Let me give you my life. No masters or kings, when the ritual begins, there is no sweeter innocence than our gentle sin. In the madness and joy of only there I am. Only there I am. Let me give you my life. Take me to church. I worship like a dog at the side of your life. I'll tell you my sins, and you can open your mouth. Offer me that. Let me go. Let me give you my life.
Alrighty then. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good everything. Hope everyone is doing well today. It's good to see you. Christina from Flint says, I truly hope he did. That sentence and Gypsy's lack of a real one that serves justice is an actual joke. I hope we hear soon. I do too. And I believe we're supposed to hear today, from what I understand, as far as I'm concerned, Gypsy's legit. Hold on. I wonder why that one didn't show up on my StreamYard. Oh, it did. Dirt. As far as I'm concerned, Gypsy's legit got away with murder and is as culpable as Godejohn, and possibly more so, considering his serious mental, intellectual, social, and mental impairments. Amen. I absolutely agree with that. Hey, COVIDs. Gypsy was telling the inmates that she was going to get away with murder, and she did it. Yep. Yes, and she was prepared for that from the moment she concocted this plan. I think she fully intended to throw him under the bus from day one, thinking she was going to get to go back home to her house and start her new life while he was in prison. She thought she was going to get away with all of this. Absolutely, 100%. So, let me say hello to everybody. Mama's the boss. Good to see you. GMD, travel savvy in the city. Hello. Shift happens. Hello. Polyester jumpers. My love. All right. So let's go ahead and get into this. There's a lot to as the new phrase is, unpack. There's a lot to unpack here. Yes, please hit that thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. I will truly appreciate it. Hey, more than enough. So if you could hit that thumbs up, or you can even hit the thumbs down, either way, it works. So let's do that. All right. So I think I'm going to start with Gypsy's. Gypsy testified for was it the defense or the prosecution in his trial? I want to say it might have been in the defense. I don't remember which one. But I think we're going to go ahead and just start there. I'm going to play that if nobody's seen it. I don't know if Law and Crime is going to get me for this, so I may have to pause so I can do some fair use, blah, blah, blah. It's 30 minutes long, so I'm going to try my best to get through the whole thing because I would like to read the documents from the appeal. Those are very important, of course. Hey, Andy. So I'm going to push play, and here we go. And this is during Nicholas's trial, I think in 2020. No, 2018.
Please be seated. All right, are we ready for your witnesses?
Yes, and their client.
All right, let's give Mr. Godejohn. Let's go on. They call him the state versus Godejohn matter.
And as we all know, this kid, I call him a kid, but you know, he's a grown man. Thank you, more than enough. I appreciate that. He would have never killed this woman had it not been for Gypsy. That's just the bottom line.
Parties are all present. Jury's not present. So I understand that you wish to call Ms. Blanchard as your first witness.
Yes, Judge, we would call Gypsy Blanchard to the witness stand.
All right, and as agreed, you're going to have her seated
Yes, before the jury.
before the jury. And we'll go through, hopefully we'll be able to do it without a recess, but if not, we'll take a recess, but they won't see her walking because she's in restraints.
Correct.
So we give Ms. Blanchard in. And her attorney is here. I note that. Blanchard, so I'm gonna see over here. Yeah, be careful on that step. And have a seat. There's water there for you, I think, isn't there?
She needs a bra or something. It must be cold in that courtroom. Jesus. Just saying. How can you nips are poking out?
Are we ready for the jury?
Well, okay, thank you, Chef.
Okay, bring the jury. You can just stand with the jury.
All rise.
testimony. Do you have a witness you? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in the cause now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Sir?
Please tell us your name.
Gypsy at Park Blanchard.
What do you go by?
Gypsy.
Okay. Gypsy, could you speak up just a bit? I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Much better?
That chair won't move. If you can hold the microphone if you want to take it out. It looks straight out.
And the D is fire.
That's much better. How old are you?
Good afternoon, Mama J.
Where were you born?
Oh,
Graceland,
that's
Louisiana.
awesome. Thank you for being here.
Where were you living in the summer of 2015, in June of 2015?
Springfield, Missouri.
Do you remember the address?
I don't remember now. I'm sorry.
How long had you lived at that address in Springfield?
About 7 years.
And prior to that, where did you live?
Slida, Louisiana.
And when did you move to Missouri?
In 2005.
And who did you move to Missouri with?
My mother,
And what was her name?
Claudina Blanchard.
Did she go by any other names?
Dee.
So if I say Dee Dee, you'll know who I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Do you know a Nicholas Godejohn?
Yes, sir.
And when did you meet Nicholas Godejohn?
In October of 2012.
How did you meet him?
On an online Christian dating website.
Do you remember the name of that site?
ChristianDatingForFree.com.
How old were you when you met?
About 21.
In June of 2015, what did you consider your relationship to Nick to be? What kind of relationship?
We were boyfriend, girlfriend.
And when did you become boyfriend and girlfriend?
In October of 2012.
When did you first meet Nick in person?
March of 2015.
So between October of 2012 and March of 2015, you hadn't actually met Nick in person?
That is correct.
What type of relationship did you have during that period of time?
Online relationship.
And by online, what do you mean?
Strictly communicating through Facebook.
Any other ways other than Facebook?
Instant text messaging, emails.
All by way of computer and cell phones?
Yes, sir.
Did you send videos to each other?
Yes, sir.
Prior to March of 15, when you indicated you met Mr. Godejohn for the first time in person, had your mother met him?
No, sir.
Did she know he existed?
No, sir.
Why is it she didn't know?
Because it was a secret relationship and my mother would never allow me.
Now, see, that is interesting to me that she says that her mother did not know anything of their relationship, because there's rumors floating around that I haven't seen any proof to yet that Gypsy claimed her mother hated Nicholas, and that is why she couldn't be with him, because she hated his guts. They did meet at the movie theater unknowingly, though. And also there's a rumor floating around that Gypsy had told Nick that she was pregnant with his baby, but had lost the baby because her mom had the feeding tube thing going on, and it caused her to have a miscarriage. I don't know if that's true. Like I said, it's a rumor. And they said that helped fuel him to schmurder, whatever. We can't say words and things, but I'm going to say words and things. I felt so bad for her when I first heard of her in 2017. Yeah, mine too. I thought she was just some little innocent victim. She didn't have nothing to do with nothing. But that is not the case, is it? Not at all.
I have a boyfriend
Why not?
because she controlled every aspect of my life.
Oh, please.
Did you and Nick ever talk about the fact that you were not allowed to date?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I saw
How
that.
many times do you think?
I don't remember.
Did you and your mother ever have any discussions about whether you were ever going to be able to date?
Yes, sir.
Did you and Nick talk about that?
We may have.
What did your mother say about your ability to date going forward?
She said that it would never happen, that she would never allow it.
What about marriage? Did you and Nick ever talk about marriage?
Yes.
Did you and your mother ever discuss whether or not you'd be able to get married someday?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She said that she wouldn't allow it.
In June of 2015, were you in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did Nick know you were in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Why were you in a wheelchair in June of 2015?
Because my mother forced me to be in one.
Do you know why you were forced to be in a wheelchair?
No, sir. She just forced me to be in one.
Okay.
And how long had you been in a wheelchair as of June of 2015?
Since probably I was about 8 years old.
Was there a time between when you first were put in a wheelchair and June of 2015 that you figured out that you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
When was that?
I always knew that I didn't need the wheelchair
And how did you know that?
because I could walk.
Did you and your mother obtain any
Yep.
kind of advantage by you being in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
What kind of advantage did you obtain?
Financial, attention, charity.
Financially mean money.
Yes, sir.
Did you obtain money as a result of you being in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
How did that work out? How did that happen?
Judge, I'm going to object to the relevance of that. There's been no connection that the defendant knew any of this.
Well, I'm assuming, Ms. Perry, you're going to tie this up.
Well, right now. Did you and Nick ever talk about the fact that you didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did you ever talk to him about why you were required to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Hey, Pugs.
I'll overrule the objection.
Could you tell the jury why it is that you obtained money as a result of being in a wheelchair?
Because people felt sorry for me.
And they would do what?
And Judge, I'm just going to object to general relevance at this point.
I'll allow it for the time being.
Well, you know, there's always some truth in there, and there's a little bit of truth. Hey, Alma. Morning on your side of the world. So she said there that people donated things because they felt sorry for her. Yes, Gypsy. You knew you were part of the con. You knew. And you knew that if people looked at you and saw a sick little girl, that you would get trips to Disney and donations and all sorts of free things. But I digress.
You may answer, ma'am.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Asked you why you obtained an advantage for being in a wheelchair. You said people gave you money. And I think my next question was, why did they give you money?
Because they felt sorry for me. They believed the lie. They believed the fraud.
When did you tell Nick about the wheelchair? That you being in a wheelchair?
I think maybe a month or so after we met.
When did you tell Nick that you didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
A year into our relationship.
So if your relationship began in October of 2012, it would have been sometime in 2013 that you first told him that you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair.
That is correct.
Were you ill during this period of time?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell Nick that you were ill or that you had illnesses?
I told him that I had illnesses. Yes, sir.
Did you ever tell him that you really weren't ill?
Yes, sir.
When did you tell him you really weren't ill?
The same time that I told him that I didn't need to be in the wheelchair.
Oh, I hope everybody caught that. I'm just going to replay that part.
told him that I had illnesses, yes, sir.
Or that you had illnesses?
I told him that I had illnesses, yes, sir.
Did you ever tell
I gotta take my
him
banner down.
that you really weren't ill?
Yes, sir.
When did you tell him you really weren't ill?
The same time that I told him that I didn't need to be in the wheelchair.
So you lied to him about being sick. There you
What
go.
illnesses did you believe you had?
Cancer, muscular dystrophy. I needed glasses. I needed hearing aids. Seizure disorder. And I can't remember what else.
And when did you figure out that you weren't actually sick?
I started to piece things together when I was about 19 years old.
Oh,
Then
please, it
I
was
didn't
before that.
understand the full extent of how healthy I was until after I got arrested.
So even at the time, even as of June of 2015, you still believed you had some of the illnesses?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever run away?
Yes, sir.
When did you, and by run away I mean from your mother,
Yes, sir.
when did you run away?
In the spring of 2011.
Did you tell Nick about that?
Yes, sir.
When did you tell Nick about that?
I don't remember the exact time.
Was it before your mother's murder?
Yes.
Did you ever consider running away after that? After you ran away in 2011?
Yes, but I knew that it would end badly.
What happened when you ran away? Tell us about running away in 2011.
It was in the middle of the night, and I packed a small bag of stuff,
Hey, Sin.
and my mother went to sleep.
Good
So
to
I left
see
the
you, my
house,
Sin.
and I met up with one of my friends
Where did you
Friends.
go?
Dan.
to first at Mercy Hospital in Springfield, and then to
All right,
his
I got to interrupt here. So let me just tell you what exactly she's talking about here. So Dan the man, Dan, take a link, Dan. So Dan is the guy that she snuck out to meet up with more than once, by the way, but she only says it was one time. This guy she met at a convention. So one night, Gypsy sneaks out of her house, hey, exiled, and goes to a random neighbor's house that, from what I understand, didn't know Gypsy, I don't think. She was walking. She wasn't in a wheelchair or anything like that. She banged on the door until they answered. She was very frantic and asked for a ride up to Mercy Hospital to see her boyfriend, who was obviously in the hospital after being beat up in a bar fight. After the hospital, she went home with Dan. And don't forget, she also had a bottle of pills with her that she stole from her mother's. They were her mother's prescription. And Dee Dee found out that Gypsy was at this house. And as the story goes, went and got her out of there. And yeah, all of that. Would love to know more from Dan and his relationship with Gypsy and what all went on during their relationship, because they definitely had one. In the text messages, and if you haven't heard them, I read all throughout them. I read the entire exchange. She asked Nicholas if she can have sex with Dan before they leave Springfield after murdering her mother. And he said no. But I mean, that's just weird. Why did you ask that, Gypsy? Huh? Because you were being a little hoe bag, a little bit, maybe, allegedly.
And at some point, did your mom figure out where you were?
They all knew she could walk. Yeah.
When was that?
4 hours later,
What happened when your mother figured out where you were?
she took me back home. She smashed my computer and my cell phone. She chained me to a bed for 2 weeks.
you ever tell Nick about all that?
Yes.
Hey, Tyler.
The only time you ran away? Did you receive any other physical abuse as a result of running away? other than
Absolutely,
what
more
you
than
already told
enough.
Gary?
Yes.
What other abuse?
Hey, Amanda Meatfoot.
Punching, starvation.
Yes, she did. Yes.
Did you tell Nick everything that had happened between you and your mother during the course of your relationship with him?
Most, but not all.
All the stuff we've talked about is stuff you actually did tell him,
Yes.
and stuff he knew as of June of 2015.
Yes.
And when did you tell him these things? All at once or over a period of time?
Over a period of time.
Beginning at what point in the relationship?
He knew since day one that my mother never allowed me to date. But I don't remember exactly when I told him every single little detail that was going on in my home life.
But you did tell him everything you did tell him by the time of June of 2015.
Yes, sir.
I assume since you believed you to be sick, you met regularly with doctors.
Yes, sir.
Did you also meet with social workers? Or do you remember that?
No, sir, I don't remember.
Why didn't you tell your doctors that you didn't really think you needed to be in a wheelchair?
Judge, I'll object to the relevance of that. That's outside the scope of the knowledge that the defendant would have.
Mr. Fair?
Judge, I think it is relevant. It goes to, it really goes to why this whole thing happened. The fact that, and I'm glad to explain it, but I really don't know we should explain it on the record.
Can we go back into it?
I'm going to allow it for the time being. Let's not get too far afield here, Mr. Fair. Do you need that question repeated, please?
Yes, please.
If you'd repeat it, Mr.
I
Fair.
would be glad to. Why did you not tell doctors that you knew you could walk or you didn't believe yourself to be ill during the time that you were doing this?
I didn't think that anyone would believe me. I thought they would eventually tell my mom, and that would make my home life even worse for me. I feared her more than I feared anyone else.
Where's your father during this time?
Louisiana.
Did you ever talk to your father while you were in Missouri?
It's a complicated answer.
Did you ever speak to him on the phone?
I did, but my mother was always present.
Did you ever tell him what was going on?
No, sir.
Now, earlier you told us you met Nick for the first time in person in March of 2015. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you meet him in person?
A Springfield movie theater.
What movie?
Cinderella.
How is it you were able to meet with Nick in March of 2015?
I paid for his transportation, his lodging to get there.
Why did you pay for it?
I didn't think he'd have enough money.
And you say you met him at the Cinderella movie. And was your mother present?
Yes.
Did you and Nick talk that night?
Yes.
How did that work out?
It didn't go well at all. My mother hated him.
Speak
from the
up.
moment they met.
Did you guys watch this movie together?
Yes.
Did your relationship change in any way that day?
Yes.
How?
We got to see each other in person for the first time.
Did it become physical that night?
Yes.
And you know what I mean by physical, don't you?
Yes.
What do I mean?
We had sexual relations
And where?
in the bathroom stall of the men's bathroom.
What was the point of you and Nick meeting up during the Cinderella movie? Were you guys trying to do something?
Yes.
What?
I was trying to introduce him to my mom so my mother would allow me to date.
You said that didn't go well.
No, sir.
Now, where did Nick live?
In Wisconsin with his mother.
Did you and Nick ever talk about any disabilities he may have?
Yes.
What disabilities did you understand him to have?
Asperger's syndrome.
Did you know what that was?
No, sir.
Now, you indicated that you paid for this trip to Missouri by Nick in 2015. What all did you pay for?
I paid for the Greyhound bus ticket. I paid for the hotel and for eating money.
And how did you pay for this? How did you get the money to Nick?
I stole the money from my mother and I sent it to him via the mail.
Gypsy, if you wouldn't mind speaking up just a bit.
Yes.
It's more soft.
Sorry.
I think you said you put it in the mail?
Yes, sir.
In what form was the money?
Cash.
Do you know how much you sent him that time?
I don't know the exact amount. Probably about $800.
Nope, he sure didn't play all those messages, did
And how
he?
would you get the money how would you steal the money from your mother?
She kept it in a money pouch.
What were your feelings for Nick in the spring of 2015?
I loved him.
Was there a point in this relationship that you considered yourself, that is you and Nick, to be more than just boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yes.
When was that?
We had plans to marry.
Any other plans for your future at that point?
We planned to have kids. Yes.
Did you do anything to prepare for having children with Nick?
Yes.
What did you do?
I stole baby clothes and things for a child.
And how would you steal baby clothes?
I was in the wheelchair, so I would steal them from Walmart.
And where would your mother be when you did this?
She would have been in a different aisle or a different section of the store.
And was she aware of any of this?
No, sir.
At some point, you decided to kill your mother, is that correct?
Yes.
When was that?
It's my opinion, RA, that she left money behind because she thought she was going to get to go home to that house after she threw Nick under the bus. She thought she was going to be scot-free, get to go home. She even says in her interrogation video if she can go home. And I think that's why she left money behind.
Thoughts of it started a year prior to the murder actually happening.
Whose idea was it to kill your mother?
Mine.
Why did you want to kill your mother?
Because I wanted to be free of her hold on me.
Did you and Nick ever talk about this?
Yes,
Pretty much,
Who initially
Andy.
brought up killing your mother?
I did.
Why not just tell somebody rather than kill your mother? Why was that not an option?
I truly didn't believe that nobody would believe me if I told anyone. My mother had legal documents in place saying that I was incompetent, and I thought that meant that
No, she didn't.
if I went to anyone, the police, or told anyone,
You are an adult,
have them
Gypsy.
convinced that I was making everything up.
You are an adult, Gypsy. You could have skipped the schmurder altogether. You could have walked out the door in the middle of the night, got into the cab that you guys paid for, took your ass to that Greyhound bus station, got on that bus, and left it all behind. Why couldn't you do that?
At some point after you initially considered killing your mother, did you ever change your mind?
Yes,
Do you know when that was?
about 2 weeks before it happened.
Why did you change your mind You decided not to kill her.
I started having doubts, second thoughts.
Did you ever then change your mind back to the initial decision to kill her?
Yes.
Why did you change your mind back to killing her?
My mother and I got into an argument 2 days prior to the murder occurring. And Nick asked me, are we still doing this? Am I still, coming there to do this? Yes or no? And I said yes.
Who talked you into killing your mother?
I did. I talked him into it.
During the time you and Nick were together, did you ever engage in fantasies or role playing or anything like that?
Yes.
Did you have names?
Yes.
Tell us about the names you utilized.
Ruby, Candy, Kitty, Bella, Demona.
Demona. Oh, Demona. How I would love to know more about this Demona altar that you had. I'm going to stop this real quick just to play a little bitty. Oh, wait, I have to send it myself real quick. Give me 5 seconds. Oops. Sorry, put that in the wrong place. Ignore that. All right, here we go. Let me pull it up real quick. So Nicholas's mother passed away shortly after his arrest of an overdose. And so now his father has taken to social media and apparently has access to Nicholas's Facebook accounts, which I think is going to be super interesting to see what happens with that. I would love to see what their Skype calls consisted of. Anyhow, here's a little video about her little alter egos that she claims that she made up. No, she's not, Pugs. His mother is dead, unfortunately. I'm going to play that one more time. Okay. No, the mom is dead. Look it up.
Why did you have different alter egos?
I made them up because he told me that he had various alter egos. And so I created mine to fit the ones with his.
Who came up with your names?
I did.
And do they each represent a different type of person?
Yes.
Was this real?
It was fantasy.
Who is Demona?
She's a character that I came up with.
Demona.
And what was the character?
She's half werewolf and half human.
Who is Kitty?
She's like a childlike girl.
Ruby?
She's my evil side.
What about Candy?
She's more of the slutty side of me.
Did you also have wigs?
Yes,
Why did you have wigs?
to change the different hair colors of the characters, and because I didn't have any hair at the time.
Why did you not have hair?
My mother would shave off my hair and tell people I had cancer.
Was any of this stuff non-consensual on your part?
Hello, Chrissy.
Personalities.
No,
Now you mentioned the idea to kill your
Oh?
mother came out
Whoa,
about a year before it happened.
When did he testify in court? Travel? I didn't know that. Right, RA. Interesting.
yes, sir.
And what was going on in your home life that made you reach the point where you did that or made that decision?
I was growing increasingly desperate to get out of my home life.
Did you tell Nick that?
Yes,
And what was your mom doing that caused you to be more desperate?
things were getting physically and more physically abusive. The hitting was more. The starving was more.
Now you mentioned you were in a wheelchair. Were you required to act any certain way when you were in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
How was that?
She would have me
Hold on.
stay very quiet and pretend like I couldn't walk.
Mr. Perry, can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
All right. I don't see it, RA. I don't think it went through. But Pop and Sass said, our Habitat for Humanity homes owned by the recipient. Just curious because I too believe her plan was to go back home and wondered if residency is contingent upon the initial qualifications. It's a really good question. Huh. Because after Dee Dee died, not that there was anyone to take the home after that, but it did go back to the Habitat for Humanity Foundation. I don't think what you copy and pasted went through, RA. YouTube will do that sometimes. Hold on. Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Okay, I see something. Out to the court or permit anyone to discuss it in your hearing. You should not form or express any opinion about the case.
And that's it. That's all of her testimony.
Excuse me.
There was so
You
much
have to
more that
research
could have been
and
asked, that
investigation
could have
on
been
your own
said,
about any matter regarding this
evidence
case or
to be
anyone involved with
shown
the trial.
while she's on the
Do not
stand.
communicate with others about the case by any means. Do not read, view, or listen to
I don't know if Dan was married with kids back
from the
then.
internet or television report of the trial. So if you all go back to the jury room, please. We'll have this checked out.
All right.
Yes, if you just sit there, that's okay.
It's just a plea deal. It was sealed.
It's making my eyes water.
Hold on.
I noticed it. 2 or 3 questions.
I did too. I started smelling it.
But then when I came back, it was
Ms.
much
Blanchard,
stronger.
I'm going to have you go with available over to the other room.
Yep,
Do you wish to
Amanda.
speak with your attorney? Ms. Blanchard, do you wish to speak with your attorney?
Here's the link. Hold on, RA.
No, I'm available. So we take her over to.
Can you email me the link?
Okay.
I'll put
And
it.
we'll explore
Here's my
it for about
email.
2 minutes. We'll see what happens. It smells like electric.
Do you ever believe in that sound, Aiden?
I heard that sound
Did you hear
twice.
that sound? I did too.
Oh, that's just.
Yeah, so there's that. Poor guy. Feel bad for the Nicholas guy, even though he's not all there. Okay, he's got issues. So let me bring this up. These are the court documents from his appeal. Trying to make sure the date on this because I don't see one really. Let's see. Oh, not even sharing my screen, am I? Yes, I am. I put my email up here on the screen if you want to email it to me. It's right there. I'll leave it up there for you for a minute. Dan did something before Nick even got there. A lot of people are saying that, Hayden. I don't know. I don't know why they would need a third party. His defense should have focused on his mental state and cognitive deficits. Yes. There was so much more they could have asked her. So much more. Okay. Let me scroll through this. So I got this off of Reddit. And the thread says, this document may be interesting reading for some of you. Specifically, if you go to page 16, Dr. W's testimony, and read from there. There's testimony from one of the doctors involved with Nick, who speaks about the effects his autism and other factors likely played in this specific case. It is a worthwhile read either way because it offers a perspective that isn't going to be shown in anything related to Lifetime or whatever Gypsy may write. I hope you find I hope blah, 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 blah. So let's go through some of this, shall we? I got about 30 minutes to spare. I've heard that he is Romans. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let me get my email pulled up too. Oh, just a second. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. Gmail. Okay, what is it? Let me see how long that clip. All right, let's go ahead and play this real quick. And then I'll read.
Appeal hearing of Nicholas Godejohn's first-degree murder conviction. He's the Wisconsin man serving a life sentence for stabbing Dee Dee Blanchard to death in 2015. Francis Watson shares the latest evidence shown in court and what's next for this case.
Okay, I'll admit it. I did actually stab him. I will admit it.
Nicholas Godejohn was convicted of first-degree murder for the stabbing death of Dee Dee Blanchard. Authorities say Blanchard's daughter, Gypsy, manipulated Godejohn into killing her mother. She testified in court that her mother forced her to use a wheelchair and undergo unnecessary medical tests to collect gifts and charitable donations. She also said
I
she
just see
planned her
the
mother's
other
murder.
part of your message.
She took a deal, pleaded guilty to second-degree
We'll go ahead
murder,
and play
and was
this,
sentenced to just 10 years. This before Godejohn even went on trial. Appeal
Near the
attorneys are
bottom.
not disputing whether or not Nicholas Godejohn killed Dee Dee Blanchard in this house back in 2015. What's at issue is his mental condition and whether or not he was properly represented during his criminal trial.
Did you have a strategic reason for not investigating and hiring a neuropsychologist with autism specialty to support that diminished capacity defense?
No, ma'am. We were comfortable with Dr. Franks, and it didn't occur to me to do such a thing until shortly after the trial.
Besides getting the proper medical expert to
Neo.
evaluate Godejohn, appeals attorney Jenny Young brought up all the media exposure surrounding the case.
Were you concerned in picking a jury that the volume of pretrial publicity was so great that there would be a presumption of prejudice among potential jurors in Greene County?
Yes.
Videos of various television and cable shows were played in court, many of which feature Gypsy giving her side of the story.
Certainly doesn't portray the accuracy of the relationship between Mr. Godejohn Ms. Blanchard.
Greene County prosecutor Dan Patterson also used the videos
I've
played
never
in
seen
court
that
to make
one.
the state's case.
In fact, in the last video we watched, she's
Interesting.
referring him as Sir,
Yeah, I mean,
an evil king.
she does say that for sure. I do remember.
What
that.
happened?
Patterson also reiterates
What do you
that his
mean?
office tried to work with Godejohn's defense.
The state did make 2 plea offers in this case, the defense.
Yes.
And at some point in our discussions, you told us that the
Oh, my
defendant wanted a
dog.
lower
Is that what you
sentence,
mean?
something closer to Gypsy Blanchard.
I mean, I don't specifically remember doing that, but I certainly know that you and I talked about a possible plea arrangement on multiple occasions.
Still, appeals attorney Valerie Leftwich says Godejohn's mental condition was key in this case.
Would you agree that any planning Nicholas may have participated in was done through the lens and the thinking of an autistic person?
Yes.
It could be a few months before Judge David Jones makes his decision on whether or not to overturn Godejohn's conviction.
Huh. All right. I think the one that she's how do I get back to it?
For over 4
No.
decades, we've been
How do I make it normal again? Hold on. Let me go back. All right. Share. You said it's towards the bottom. Prosecutor Dan Patterson. Wait, what? When is this article from? I didn't read the date. Defense calls attorney. Public defenders. Court in session. Let's go to Godejohn appeal hearing. Godejohn's first cousin. Her mother was Godejohn's mother's sister. Oh, thank you for this article. I'm going to scour through this later. Theodore. Yeah, the stabbing motions. I uploaded that on my short video if anyone wants to see that. Dr. Westerman. Recess. Daniel Glidewell. That's him. Glidewell kept in contact with Gypsy via video chat. He says that Gypsy told him her mother made her stay in a wheelchair and had unnecessary medical treatment. He says that their relationship developed from friendship to a sexual relationship. They would send explicit videos to each other. He discussed how they role-played occasionally. He referred to Gypsy as being shy and timid. He says he developed a taste of power exchange role-playing from her. He says she would send nude photos, dress up in costumes, and use various fictitious names. Glidewell says he was injured and that Gypsy visited him while he was in the hospital. She told him she wanted to go to Arkansas to restart her life. Arkansas? See, she was doing this to other people. It wasn't just him. He was just the perfect patsy for her. Nicholas was the perfect person to pull this off. No one in their right mind would take her up on this offer of murdering her mother, but a mentally disturbed, mentally handicapped guy that she came across on a Christian dating site. She taught him to role play. That is so, I cannot wait to read the rest of this. Wow. So was that from his first appeal? Because isn't this his second one? Interesting. Yeah, he's coming. She's going to come live with you, Ash. All right. So let's read as much of this as we can. Again, I don't have a ton of time, but I got a little bit of time. All right, Nicholas P. Godejohn. Let me get a drink of water before I do this. Oh, Lordy. Appeals the denial of his amended Rule 29, whatever, motion to vacate, set aside, or correct the judgment and sentence entered. Let me blow it up for my blind self. In sentence entered into the state versus Nicholas Godejohn, Greene County, Missouri case, yada, yada, yada. Timeline statement. On September 30th, 2020, this court issued its mandate affirming Mr. Godejohn's conviction on direct appeal. Mr. Godejohn's timely filed his pro se, yada, yada, later on December 29, 2020. A public defender entered her appearance on January 4th, 2021. Statement of facts. Underlying criminal case. On direct appeal, this court summarized the facts in the underlying criminal case as follows. Nicholas Paul Godejohn, defendant, was convicted of first-degree murder and armed criminal action for killing Claudine Blanchard, the victim. Defendant met victim's daughter, Gypsy Rose, through an internet dating site in October 2012. They began a secret romantic relationship because the mother, we're just going to say the mother, the victim, the mother, controlled every aspect of Gypsy's life and would not let her have a boyfriend. Gypsy told defendant that victim had forced her to pretend to be disabled to receive financial help and charity. By at least May of 2014, defendant and Gypsy had developed 3 different plans to try to get Gypsy away from victim so they could be together. After a meeting between defendant and victim was unsuccessful, they decided on a plan that involved killing victim. Between May 27th and June 10th, 2015, defendant and Gypsy sent each other numerous electronic messages about the plan. In these messages, Gypsy asked defendant about the items he needed to commit the crime. He chose a knife for the crime and also told Gypsy he wanted duct tape to muffle the victim. Defendant texted Gypsy as he traveled from his home in Wisconsin to Springfield, Missouri, and informed her when he had arrived. On the night of the crime, Gypsy texted defendant and told him victim had taken her sleeping pill. On June 10th at 2:07 in the morning, defendant texted Gypsy, informing her he had arrived at her house and telling her to get in the bathroom. After entering the home and making sure Gypsy was in the bathroom, defendant waited a minute and thought about if he, quote, really wanted to do it. After the murder, defendant and Gypsy went back to defendant's home in Wisconsin. On June 14, 2015, authorities discovered the victim's body laying on her bed. Victim died as a result of 14 stab wounds to her back. After authorities identified defendant as suspect AM of the Greene County Sheriff's Office, he admitted to killing the victim. Defendant was charged with first-degree murder. We already know all this. Their testimony established that the defendant has autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and an IQ on the low side of average, and he could read and graduated from high school. The jury found defendant guilty on both counts, and the trial court sentenced defendant to life in prison without parole for first-degree murder and a concurrent term of 25 years in prison for armed criminal action. In his first point, defendant argues the trial court abused its discretion in excluding proposed testimony of the defense's psychological expert, Dr. F. Regarding the effect defendant's ASD, his disability, his autism, had on his ability to deliberate at the time of the offense. Footnote omitted. In his second point, defendant argues the trial court abused its discretion when it permitted the state to call Dr. D in rebuttal because the examination Dr. D conducted of defendant prior to trial was not authorized under Rule 2506. Footnote omitted. With respect to both of these points, defendant argues he was prejudiced because his primary defense was lack of deliberation due to his autism. Both of these claims failed because there was overwhelming evidence of deliberations in spite of the evidence that defendant had been diagnosed with ASD. Here, there was overwhelming evidence of deliberation showing that any alleged error in the exclusions of Dr. F's testimony or the omission of Dr. D's testimony was harmless beyond a reasonable doubt and therefore not so prejudicial that it deprived defendant of a fair trial. Defendant and Gypsy discussed the proposed crime for a period of over a year, as shown by electronic messages regarding the plan from as early as 2014. In addition to rejecting alternative course of action, they communicated about what type of equipment defendant would need. Okay, we already read that. Under these circumstances, the result of the trial would not have been different if Dr. F had testified that defendant's ASD affected his ability to deliberate on the night of the crime, or if Dr. D had been prevented from testifying. There's an amended motion. Let me take a break for just 5 seconds. Look at the chat. Gypsy's a narcissist. Yes, yes. What's live on Kick, Rumble, and Cozy? Where Gypsy refers to Nick as her slave? What? As a manipulation tactic. Yes. All right. I wonder, hold on. Let me look at my notes. Okay, so this says specifically you want to go to page 16. So we may skip this because I'm going to finish reading this part though. And then I'm going to go to page 16. So this is the amended motion, Claim A. Claim A of the amended motion alleged. Nicholas Godejohn was denied effective assistance of counsel, a fair trial, due process, and was subjected to cruel and unusual punishment in violation of his rights under the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 10, 18, and 21 of the Missouri Constitution, in that his trial counsel failed to fully investigate and present evidence from a qualified neuropsychologist specializing in autism spectrum disorder to support a diminished capacity defense. Counsel failed to exercise the customary skill and diligence that a reasonably competent attorney would have exercised under a similar circumstance. Nicholas Godejohn was prejudiced as a result, in that had counsel not been effective, there is a reasonable probability that he would not have been convicted of first-degree murder and armed criminal action and would not have been sentenced to life without probation and parole in 25 years. The motion further alleged that once trial counsel elected to put forth a diminished capacity defense based on autism and Asperger's, any reasonably competent defense counsel would have investigated and presented evidence from a qualified neuropsychologist who had expertise and experience in the area of ASD and Asperger's syndrome. The motion alleged that Dr. F was not a specialist and did not have much practical experience with autism. The state argued that Dr. F is not qualified to testify as an expert this case at a pretrial offer of proof hearing because he does not know the legal standard involved. The amended motion alleged that after that hearing, trial counsel was on notice to investigate an expert in neuropsychology specializing in autism. The amended motion pointed out that, unlike a specialist, the practical experience, Dr. F could not explain how Mr. Godejohn's diagnosis would affect his ability to deliberate. On the other hand, a neuropsychologist with experience in autism would have explained to the jury that Gypsy's manipulation of Mr. Godejohn over 2.5 years combined with Mr. Godejohn's ASD/Asperger's, which would have negated Mr. Godejohn's ability to deliberate. A specialist would have explained that Mr. Godejohn's conditions caused him to surrender his deliberation to Gypsy's logic because he took her statements as literal facts when he said that killing her mother was the only way they could be together and that it was up to him to rescue her. The amended motion pointed out that trial counsel would have been on notice to investigate and call such an expert after Dr. F's competency examination and a review of Mr. Godejohn's school and disability records. The amended motion explains that a neuropsychologist specializing in ASD/Asperger's would have rebutted Dr. D's testimony that Mr. Godejohn grew out of autism into Asperger's. Can you even do that? You can't grew out of autism into Asperger's. Okay. And that he had a, quote, very mild form of the condition. If defense counsel would have investigated and called a specialist, the jury would have known that, quote, mildly autistic is misleading because, quote, mild refers to a person's superficial socialness to mask social dysfunction rather than the severity of the person's disability. The levels of autism correspond to how much support a person needs, and Mr. Godejohn did not receive the support he needed at home or through services in the community. In support of Claim A, Mr. Godejohn pleaded that he would call Dr. W., who is a pediatric neuropsychologist, to testify at the post-conviction hearing. Dr. W. is a founding member and current president of the American Board of Pediatric Neuropsychology. He was substantial, practical, experienced evaluating and treating individuals with autism spectrum disorder / Asperger's syndrome. The amended motion alleged that he would testify as follows. What page am I on? 11. People with autism spectrum disorder are susceptible to other people's wishes and are the ideal targets for manipulation. They often misperceive social intentions. Social impairments is one of the most prominent features of ASD. Dr. W. will testify that people at the high end of the spectrum, such as those with Asperger's, want intimacy, but have a very difficult time maintaining it. They also have a greater need for emotional intimacy, but have trouble maintaining it as well. People with ASD are tense and anxious about their relationship because their relationships often fail. Dr. W. will testify that those with ASD have a lot of high emotional empathy with others, which parallels the emotional state of that other person. They are also unable to read facial expressions and intentions. Dr. W. will also testify that people with ASD are hyper-focused on narrow interests. They can't think about or do anything else and almost can't feel their own emotions because of it. A person with ASD will take everything that another person says at face value because they are so hyper-focused and don't pick up on social cues. All right, let's go ahead and skip to page 16. Sorry, I cannot see chat right now. But all right, so we're going to read Dr. W's testimony. All right, so here we go. I see you guys. Behave yourselves. Behave yourselves. All right, oops. Dr. W testifies at the post-conviction hearing that he is a pediatric neuropsychologist. He is not a forensic psychologist. His specialties are neurodevelopment disorders such as autism, attention deficit disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and traumatic brain injuries. He is broad in clinical psychology from the American Board of Professional Psychology, and he is boarded in pediatric neuropsychology from the American Board of Pediatric Neuropsychology. He is currently licensed in Florida and previously practiced in New York and New Jersey. He has cared for thousands of children on the autism spectrum every year at large clinics in Florida. All right, those are his credentials. We get it. You're really good at what you do. Dr. W testifies that neurodevelopment disorders have a neurological basis for the we already kind of went over that, so I'm going to skip it for now. I'll put the link to this in the chat also if anybody wants to go read through all of this for themselves. Regarding Asperger's syndrome specifically, Dr. W testifies that it is not a current diagnosis in the United States with the DSM-5, but it is still a potential diagnosis in other parts of the world that use a different system. Okay, we're just going to kind of skip through some of this. He testified that people with Asperger's are quite different from other autistic people. The primary difference between a person with Asperger's and a person who is classically Kanner's description of autism is that a person with Asperger's is essentially superficially social. They want to be social and get along with people, but they just don't know how. They don't have the social skills because they miss judgments and cues. They have the same kind of social isolation as a person with classic autism, but the isolation is due to their inadequacy as opposite to a choice. We already kind of went over this in the overview that people with Asperger's are more susceptible to suggestion and social manipulation, hyperfocus, the term mild being used to describe autistic people. A person must be in the top 2% of the people who are being considered for the diagnosis. It is still a rare diagnosis, and a person has to be severely impacted at baseline to be considered autistic at all. The idea that someone could be mild and that most of the day it doesn't bother them or doesn't impact them is a misinterpretation of the word mild, because an autistic person's thinking is always characterized by their autism. In preparation for Rule 2915 proceeding, Dr. W reviewed records, discovery, psychological reports, videos, and other information about Mr. Godejohn and the case. Mr. Godejohn at what is that? Patasi? I don't know. Patasi Correction Center on March 25th, 2022. He also considered the reports of Dr. F and Dr. D. After completing his evaluation of Mr. Godejohn, Dr. W found that Mr. Godejohn meets the criteria for the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Dr. W determined that Mr. Godejohn meets the criteria for moderate 2. Dr. W considers significant that Mr. Godejohn had a traumatic birth requiring intervention from difficulty breathing and the cord wrapped around his neck. I did not know that. Okay. The records indicated that Mr. Godejohn was placed on Social Security disability at the age of 19 due to his ASD/Asperger's. The records indicated a severe disruption of his disability to function in society, hold employment, have friends, maintain relationships, prepare his own food, and take care of his hygiene. He had problems grasping the real world and understanding the environment around him, which is typical for patients with the Asperger's form of ASD. When asked what he does all day long, Mr. Godejohn answered that he goes on the computer, walks, eats, and sleeps. Dr. W noted that Mr. Godejohn was isolated. Mr. Godejohn reported that he gets frustrated with people and does not like crowds, which is typical for ASD. Based on his review of the available materials, Dr. W discovered that Mr. Godejohn's conditions affects every aspect of his life, from self-care to general demeanor during the day and to social interactions. His need for support was identified early on, and he was placed in a special education program for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. He went through 3 levels of intervention until he was receiving the most support available. His reading and writing skills were at 4th or 5th grade level when he was 16 years old. Okay, all right. The records indicate that the disorder has been all-encompassing for Mr. Godejohn's entire life. Records indicate to Dr. W that past relationships failed because Mr. Godejohn had trouble thinking. Mr. Godejohn could not look introspectively to say what went wrong, so he was not able to draw appropriate social conclusions. Like most people with Asperger's/ASD, Mr. Godejohn was desperate to have a relationship and went right back to find a new person without having learned from his prior experiences. Dr. W testified that Mr. Godejohn met Gypsy at the Christian Dating for Free website in 2012. After reading Nick's profile, Gypsy contacted him first. Ooh, we're getting to the juicy juice now, guys. The juice. Because I comment on it. Alma, why are you playing tricks? What are you doing in there? All right, come on. We're getting to the juicy juice here. All right, here we go. Gypsy contacted him first. They messaged on the website for a day and a half before Gypsy suggested that they move to Facebook to continue their relationship. Dr. W testified that, as is typical with autistic people, Mr. Godejohn did not initiate, but was responding to the direction he was getting. Mr. Godejohn kept a journal between 2012 and Ooh, I want to see this journal. Show us the journal. Mr. Godejohn kept a journal between 2012 and 2015 that detailed his online relationship with Gypsy. Dr. W testified that the journal reflects Mr. Godejohn's ASD/Asperger's because it mostly recounts facts instead of qualitative emotional content. He wrote good night to himself. Once he wrote, note to self, always keep Gypsy close, for she is everything I ever wanted, end quote. He also noted that he and Gypsy were becoming in sync with each other by their communication. The journal reflects that the relationship was all-encompassing to Mr. Godejohn. Dr. W received the large number of videos that Gypsy sent to Mr. Godejohn. The large number of videos that Gypsy sent to Mr. Godejohn. Please release these videos. Okay. The large number of videos that Gypsy sent to Mr. Godejohn and the ones that Mr. Godejohn sent back. The video spanned from February 2013 to May 26, 2015. Also communicated with Nick from her, Demona Love Slave account. I need to know more about Demona, Gypsy. Can you get back to me on that? Thank you. In many videos, she was depicted in role-playing personas, as well as being naked and masturbating. Oh, Gypsy. Gypsy. Why, Gypsy? Why? Lord have mercy. Demona. Ugh. They both took turns being dominant and submissive, or, quote, master and, quote, slave. Gypsy told Mr. Godejohn when it was his turn to be master or slave. So who was really the one pulling the strings here? As we know, Gypsy Blanchard. This is wow. Dr. W found that the videos from Gypsy to Mr. Godejohn were instructional videos. Interesting. Autistic people receive their information about the social requirements of relationships from the structure of videos rather than the outside world. Mr. Godejohn was receiving his information about the requirements for his social relationship from the videos and not from anywhere else. The various persona were feeding Mr. Godejohn instructions. Oh my God. On the subject of love, for example, she instructed him, if you love me, you will do this. If you love me, you will do that. The instruction videos, wow, I'm just like, oh my God. I can't wait till the actual evidence is released. Ooh. The instruction videos demonstrated how to stab someone. And if you haven't seen that, let me drop that in here. It's on my channel. It's just my latest short video upload. Let me put it in here for you guys. Here you go. This is the video she sent him with the stabbing motions. Okay, where was I? The instruction videos demonstrated how to stab somebody. They were instruction videos that told him what the rewards would be for appropriate behavior, and they were instructional videos that told him what the punishment would be for behavior that the person did not like. It was a process of shaping a person who had social deficits into action of some form that would demonstrate his love for her. Gypsy, you are twisted. You are so gross. What you did to this kid is so disgusting. You sick, twisted, demented little twit. Yeah, I said it. I said it. Good luck, Ryan. You are sick, man. She knew what she was doing the entire time. 2 years. Dr. W testified that the videos would affect Mr. Godejohn differently than a non-autistic person because the videos would totally define Nick's reality. There would not be a separate Nick out in the real world who could second guess his role playing. When she was in the role-playing situations, he, quote, in quotes, he was totally there. He was totally there in an instructional setting where she laid the ground rules for how he was to relate to her. Wow. Show the videos, put the evidence out. We need to see it. Give this kid a new trial. This guy needs a new trial. Wow. Dr. W found Gypsy's videos to be fascinating because each role had its own set of rules. Get ready for this. So you had Demona, that was the master who was telling Nick that, quote, if you do what I want you to do, there will be sex and there will be favors. If you don't, there will be punishment. I'll take away Gypsy. Oh my God. Pause for a moment, please, for a moment. Hold up. Wait a minute. Okay. So I found this video on TikTok and I was like, what the fuck? Who is this? I've talked about this video. Here's Demona right here. And at first I didn't understand why she was saying, I'm going to use the one card that I have over you, Gypsy. I thought she was talking about her mother. Like, I'll use the one card that I have over you, Gypsy, like in the first person talking to her as Gypsy. No, we just read that it was Demona. This is Demona on a video chat with Nicholas telling him, I'm going to use the one card that I have over you, and that card is Gypsy.
I use the one card that I have over you. I use the one card that I have over you.
Wow.
I use the one card that I have over you. I use the one card that I have over you.
Well, that changes the tone of that video after reading that. All right, let's continue. So you had Demona, that was the master who was telling Nick that, quote, if you do what I want you to do, there will be sex and there will be favors. If you don't, there will be punishment. I'll take away Gypsy. And then we have this later character introduced that basically shows up in a red wig and gives him instructions about how to hurt people, and that we're going to rob and steal and all the rest of the stuff. So to me, it was just a very organized attempt to manipulate someone who didn't have the social judgment to really suspend belief. Whoa. Dr. W testified that role playing is the primary way that people with ASD use to build their relationships with others. The actual physical social interaction with people social interaction with people is too threatening, has too much information, so they can't process it. There are treatment programs that are based on role-playing games online. People like Nick are still autistic even when they are role-playing and losing themselves to the characters. After reviewing all the videos and messages between Gypsy and Mr. Godejohn, Dr. W concluded that, for the most part, it was a process of shaping Mr. Godejohn. It was a process of taking a person with a social deficit and shaping his behavior by sending the instructions that if he loved her, he would do what all of her personas asked him to do. Dr. W testified that Gypsy was Mr. Godejohn's hyperfocus, and she made herself conditional upon his doing what she said. It was part of the process of indoctrination, which is well established in psychology and the military. It is typical for people with Asperger's to have hyper-focused periods of time. Taking her away would be very threatening and upsetting to him. Dr. W reviewed the texts between Gypsy and Mr. Godejohn from the night of the murder. He found that they were a continuation of the pattern where she gives him instructions. The 2 years of role-playing were a foundation from the events that took place on the night of the murder. They were part of programming a person with an autistic disorder to follow instructions and engage in a behavior based on the fact that he would lose his object of fascination if he did not. The behavior was always equated with love because that is the only way an autistic person would be able to understand this. In one video, Gypsy went into her mother's bedroom and made a stabbing motion over the bed. It was significant to Dr. W because it was a demonstration of how Mr. Godejohn was supposed to engage in the behavior that would end up in the death of the victim. The video was dated about 3 weeks before the murder. All right, let's take a little break here while I play that video. Oh, Gypsy, Gypsy. Oh, Gyp. Little sick, twisted, demented little something. I don't know what the word would be. Okay. In one video, Gypsy went into her mother's bedroom and made a stabbing motion over the bed. It was significant to Dr. W because it was a demonstration of how Mr. Godejohn was supposed to engage in the behavior that would lead to the death of the victim. That video was dated about 3 weeks before the murder. About 3 days later, Gypsy sent Mr. Godejohn another video called Ruby's Introduction to Her Perfect Man. Oh, Lord, we getting into it now. Video called Ruby's Introduction to Her Perfect Man. Ruby was a new character Gypsy introduced to Nick. Ruby introduces herself as a sociopath. Oh, God. She says, like, how would Gypsy even know what a sociopath is? Oh, Lord. Wow. Just wow. She says that she herself is a person that breaks the rules, violates the rules, creates mayhem, and she basically tells Nicholas that she is his perfect match. Quote, "We are together, and together we are going to go," end quote. Essentially on what she describes as a, quote, crime spree. I gotta blow this up because I'm blind. And we're going to rob, we're going to steal, and we're going to do all of these things because you are my perfect match and we will be together. So it's sort of like the culmination of the training, which, again, to just remind everybody, is behavior. Quote, "If you love me, this is what you'll do," end quote. So Ruby was introduced to basically summarize that up. So, in case there was any confusion, if that was what Nick understood. Dr. W reviewed the interrogation videos from when Mr. Godejohn was first arrested. When Mr. Godejohn was waiting for detectives to arrive, he periodically mentioned that he was worried about Gypsy. He was still fixated on her at the time. And an autistic person will do anything to get their fixation. If you haven't watched Nicholas's interrogation in full, and it's really long, it's like 14 hours, if something like that. They kept this guy waiting and waiting and waiting in an interrogation room for hours upon hours upon hours. But the hours that he's sitting there, he talks to himself. And I think it's really important that people hear that part of the interrogation, not just the part where the interrogation person is actually interrogating him. All right, let's continue. I got about 10, 15 more minutes. Dr. W testified that multiple times Gypsy turned down Mr. Godejohn's proposal to run away instead of commit murder, which is part of the process of training. She eliminated alternatives until the only option left was what she wanted him to do. When Mr. Godejohn arrived in Springfield on the night of the murder, it was his intention to talk Gypsy out of it and run away. Oh, that's interesting. He did not bring anything with him, and Gypsy provided it all to him. He tried to talk her out of it, but he was not able to because she said there was no other option. Dr. W testified that when Mr. Godejohn was walking to the victim's room, he was having an argument with himself, which is typical of someone on the spectrum because they get overwhelmed and overstimulated. The argument in his head leads to, quote, autistic panic. When the autistic person does not think well, they panic when things get out of their control, and sometimes they are hospitalized for it. It is a typical reaction when they feel pressured by competing things or things outside of their control. Like the expert at trial, Dr. W was not allowed to testify to the ultimate conclusion on the element of deliberation. As an offer of proof, however, Dr. W was allowed to answer. Nicholas was able to answer Nicholas's thinking at the time of the murder was characterized by the same features and factors that Nicholas's thinking was always characterized by because he's autistic and because that's how he processes information. If Nicholas, his fixation on Gypsy, would have characterized everything that he did, and it would have colored everything that he did. I can't state whether that meets whatever criteria you guys are talking about, but I would say with a lot of certainty, that was his preeminent thought at the time. Dr. W elaborated that Mr. Godejohn's thinking would have been on the things that were causing him the stress, and his focus would have been on the argument he was having with himself. Dr. W reviewed Dr. D's CV and did not see a lot of experience in treating autism, although Dr. D did report evaluating people who were autistic in certain circumstances. Dr. W did not think that Dr. D purposely mischaracterized anything at the trial. But his use of the word, quote, mild, misrepresented the level of disruption in Mr. Godejohn's life. It left the impression that the autism was not so bad. Like Nick could go about his day for the most part, like anybody else, which is not accurate. Mr. Godejohn is never able to think or act without the deficits of an autistic person. On cross-examination, Dr. W testified that Mr. Godejohn is able to think, but all of his thoughts are colored or characterized by ASD. Gypsy initially brought up the idea of killing her mother in a joking manner, and she got progressively more serious about it. Mr. Godejohn was against the idea, and he asked her many times if she was certain. About 1 year prior to the murder, Nick told a Facebook friend that he thought Gypsy was crazy for wanting to kill her mom. I have those exchanges, and I'll go through them another time. Mr. Godejohn testified the plan. Mr. Godejohn justified the plan by bringing up how badly the victim treated Gypsy. About a month before the murder, Nick told a Facebook friend, quote, "Me and the one I'm with are defying the laws of nature to stay together. It is as bad as can be. I won't tell you what I have to do to stay with her, but I will do it if it means keeping her." Dr. W testifies that his statement is exactly consistent with what Dr. W had been saying about TR 173. Dr. W had reviewed and was aware of the alternative plans that had been considered, as well as Nick's internet searches to prepare for the murder. Dr. W recalled Nick's statement that there was a moment when Nick stood outside the victim's bedroom door and something clicked, and he realized he had given his word and was bound by it. Mr. Godejohn cut the back of the victim's neck so she would die quickly, and he briefly thought about having sex with the victim before deciding not to. Dr. W acknowledged that Victor in quotes, because that was what Nicholas said, he had an alter name, Victor, and that was his evil side, was Mr. Godejohn's, quote, master character, and Mr. Godejohn had previously used that character with another girlfriend prior to Gypsy. Dr. W testifies that Nick described the argument in his head like having a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other shoulder. However, it would be a mischaracterization to think they are two rational actors having a rational conversation. It was turmoil from the pressure of two competing sets of thoughts, and Mr. Godejohn would have described it as arguing because his vocabulary was limited. From the pressure between love and the general rules of society, Nick went back and forth and reached a point where he snapped. Dr. W would not characterize it as a conversation in Nick's head because it was more like pressure. Ooh, okay. Yeah, I think that's about it, because now it's going to go into the plea offers, and I'm just going to stop right there. Yeah. Wow. I want to see all these freaking videos. Oh my God. I want to know if he's going to get a new, I really hope he gets this plea deal, not a plea deal, sorry, his appeal. Yes, re-listen, Autumn. Go back and listen to everything I just read. If anything, read that, listen to that. So Nicholas's father has a TikTok page. Why isn't it not letting me bring it up? Oh, duh. That's why. Okay, here we go. We're just going to go through these videos. Okay. So these are images or screenshots of messages I've never seen before. They're from Facebook. And Gypsy had many fake or sock accounts, whatever you want to call them, alt accounts of on Facebook. This is one of them that was called Emma Rose, and it says, "Oh God, here we go with the creepy sex talk on." Bleh. If I started moaning sexually out of the blue in a public place, would it embarrass you or turn you on? Don't answer that, Neo. He says, "Dear, it matters on the scenario. Yes, you said we would be out in public, but you didn't say anything else besides that, dear. You know, naturally, your moan turns me on, but it all depends on the place in public and the scenario based on how much it would turn me on, darling." She said, "LOL, okay, darling." There's some pictures of her in her little outfits. Demona. We see you, Demona. Nicholas Bella Godejohn. That was one of her other Facebook profiles. Here's some more. Oh, go back. Damn it. I hate TikTok. Well, I don't hate it. I hate it on the computer. So this one says, and then this is Gypsy. And this, if you see in the red writing, Nick's dad has access to Nick's Facebook account. Uh-oh, Gypsy. Uh-oh. Bet you didn't see that one coming, did you? Uh-oh. So Gypsy says, "Damn, I wanted Rob or John, but I got Dragon Girls, Guardian, and wannabe lover. Okay, so love, loyalty, and I'm going to pick my own lover, Nicholas Godejohn." She was doing one of those stupid Facebook quiz things. The next one says, Nicholas, this is Nicholas. "Dear, I was waiting for you to say that. You'll pick me over everyone else. I knew you were going to, just had to wait for it." She says, "Hee hee, I am a tease, but a loyal one, hun." And he says, "Well, you already know how I feel about that, dear, since I expressed it not long ago." Okay. And the title of that TikTok says, "Truth is coming out." Uh-oh, Gypsy. Uh-oh. Truth's coming out, boo. What is this? The defense attorney calls Daniel. Oh, this is Dan the man. He met Gypsy at a convention. Daniel Glidewell. Glidewell kept in contact with Gypsy via video chat. He says that Gypsy told him her mother made her stay in a wheelchair and had unnecessary medical treatment. He says that their relationship, we already read this earlier in the stream, but I'm just going to go ahead and read it again, developed from friendship to a sexual relationship. They would send explicit videos to each other. He discusses how they role play occasionally. He referred to Gypsy as being shy and timid. He says he developed a taste of power exchange role playing from her. He says she would send nude photos, dress up in costumes, and use various fictitious names. Glidewell says he was injured, and that Gypsy visited him while he, oh God, I can't with this freaking TikTok format. Go back. No. Gypsy visited him in the hospital. She told him she wanted to go to Arkansas to restart her life. Gypsy also tried once to escape her mother. She met a man at the science fiction convention that Kim Blanchard and her husband also attended. Kim Blanchard is not related to them, by the way. Oh, okay. So maybe I should read Dan from Comic Con. It wasn't Comic Con. The only man Gypsy ever wanted. Ooh, interesting. She met a man at the science fiction convention that Kim Blanchard and her husband also attended. Gypsy said this man began communicating online. At the time, in February 2011, Gypsy and Dee Dee were leaving everyone with the impression that she was 15. She was actually 19, according to Kim. The man in the question was 35. He took Gypsy back to his hotel room. You little hussy. Throughout, okay, you stupid thing. Gypsy back to his hotel room. Throughout the, I cannot read that because there is a stupid play button over it. Through convention something something. Stop. No. Intelligence. Quote, we were all overprotective of her, Kim Blanchard said. Dee Dee found them. She apparently knocked on the hotel room door with papers that showed Gypsy was a minor, and the man let Gypsy leave. He could not be reached for comment. But she wasn't a minor. She was 19. Let's see. I have that on my phone, so I can't read what that says from here. Let me pull it up so I can read it. Gypsy, Gypsy, what's going on, Gypsy? Oh, I bet I saved the fucking video. Yep, here it is. All right, hold on. All right. I have to zoom in here. Okay, so this is like Facebook exchanges, and obviously some of the names are blacked out. It says, "Hello, I wanted to talk to you about Gypsy." And the girl named Megan says, "Absolutely, what's up?" This other person that is redacted says, sorry guys, I'm really having to zoom in here. "I used to help with a local," redacted, "that Gypsy and Dee Dee attended. Gypsy and this man met there. She told him she was older than everyone thought that," shit, this is so hard to read, "that she was older than everyone thought and that her real birth certificate showed her being 18. I don't know if anything physical happened, but they were talking about dating." And then the person replies back and says, and this was behind Dee Dee's back, I'd assume. And then the redacted name says, "Yes, from what I know. Gypsy waited till Dee Dee took her sleep meds to sneak out." See, she was sneaking out all the time. It wasn't just one time, Gypsy. Stop lying. It's time to tell the truth. Just tell the truth. "Yes, from what I know, Gypsy waited until Dee Dee took her sleep meds to sneak out. She took money with her and a bottle of Vicodin." Megan says, "Wow, any details you feel comfortable sharing about this guy, age, etc.? Just anything that would be relevant to the story, nothing too personal." Redacted says, "We helped get Gypsy back, believing she was underage. At that time, there were 2 birth certificates, one with her true age on it, but we were lied to believe it was a typo due to Hurricane Katrina. Dee Dee said it was because everyone was asking for their birth certificates. He was in his 30s. The Megan girl says, "Wow, okay, so what year was this? Knowing now her real birth year was 1991, how old would she have been? And do you care to elaborate on how you got her back?" Redacted said, "He was kind of a ladies' man." Redacted says, "Yeah, it was 4 or 5 years ago, so she would have been 18 or 19. A friend went and got her." Megan says, "Okay, anything else?" Redacted said, "Dee Dee wanted to meet the guy at a local Walmart. Our friend said she was carrying a hammer. He offered to get Gypsy, worried about a physical confrontation." Megan says, "Whoa." Redacted says, "Dee Dee made Gypsy apologize to the convention staff. When I talked to Gypsy later, she said all she wanted was to be a real girl and fall in love." Megan says, "That's so sad." Redacted said, I wish, okay, it's hard to read this because there's letters over it, just so that a couple of us talked with Dee Dee via Facebook and told her that she needed to let Gypsy, and I can't read that, let Gypsy, I don't know what that says. Redacted says, Gypsy hit on other men in the group via Facebook. Men in their 30s and 40s. They may not feel comfortable coming forward. I know they rebuffed her, but still. Megan says, wow. Yes, anyone who's comfortable speaking with me, I would love them to come forward. You can emphasize the fact I will not use their names or any identifying characteristics. Redacted says, okay, I can do that. Deep down, I think she was looking for a way out. The community is in so much pain. I'm hoping by doing this, it can help the healing process. Gypsy, what the? Okay, here's another one. Let me skip to that part and I'll read it. Okay, Redacted says, I posted this on the KY3 pages, but I'll post it here too. A couple of years back, Gypsy showed up at our door. In parentheses, we live right down the road from where she lived. Late at night and begged my husband to give her a ride to Mercy ER to check on her boyfriend who had gotten beat up. My husband gave her a ride and he said she talked about Hurricane Katrina and how they landed here, but she was walking and talking, but walking just fine when she showed up at our door. She was wearing a long wig and he remembers her childlike voice. My husband said she was frantic to get to Mercy. And now we wonder if this was a runaway attempt from her mother. Please remember this is a post from years ago. My husband immediately recognized her from the pictures posted online, and it totally freaked us out because they live so close. Oh, Gypsy. Why, Gypsy? Why? I'm privy to one of the events you have posted near the end of your article about Gypsy frantically attempting to get to Mercy ER for a boyfriend that had been beaten up. The boyfriend in question was not Godejohn, but a friend of mine. She made it to the hospital and was then brought to what was then my house. I can confide that she had an ID that stated that she was 18 at the time. It was shortly after she had gotten there that her mother showed up and caused quite the scene, threatening my friend who was suffering from multiple injuries, including a broken back, with legal action because Gypsy was, quote, a minor, and that the reason that she had different IDs was due to the mix-up in paperwork from Hurricane Katrina and missing records. The wig was blonde, so she had no glasses, and I can also assure you that she walked just fine. Oh, Gypsy. What's this? Let's see what that one is. Okay. It happened. I knew the guy that she was with when she ran away. No one believed her or him when he tried to tell people Dee Dee was a liar. That guy was trashed and made to look like a sick pedophile taking advantage of a disabled girl. Having known Gypsy, I was guilty of thinking this also. Now I feel bad for him and he needs to be publicly cleared. Gypsy. All right, there's one more. Let me blow that up. Your article is incredible, very matter of fact. I want people to see that I was incredibly close to Gypsy, and even in October, she was telling me she was 18. I don't believe all blame should be put onto Dee Dee. I'm not saying this to convict Gypsy, but this is another piece of information that people should notice. Also, I believe the incident from 2011 with Gypsy's boyfriend should also be brought up. In the messages, she referred to him as a pedophile. The youngest she would have been is 18, making the whole incident completely legal. Just 2 nights ago, I made the connection as to why Dee Dee never reported the incident. I originally blew it off, believing that Dee Dee is so kind-hearted she couldn't do that. But she literally could not do it even if she wanted to, because Gypsy was 18. Also, I'm incredibly curious as to why her family is just now bringing up these scams and saying how they knew all these lies. My question is, why did they not report this earlier? Why wait? Who knows how much money and freebies were given to them, and then a murder? Why not report it when they supposedly fled? All of this is the reason I need to hear Gypsy's side before I can move on. I wish there was some way I could speak with her. I thought we were so close. That must be Dan the man. There's Dan the man. Dan, come take a link, Dan. You need to tell your story, Dan. But everyone sees Gypsy as a victim, right? She's not. There's old Dan the man. She was sexing him up. It was sexing up Dan. You little hussy. Oh, Danny boy, Dan. All right, there's Demona.
Gypsy, I only use the one card that I have over you. Gypsy, I only use the one.
Now this medicine closet. Oh, don't get me started on the medicine closet. A lot of that stuff is over-the-counter medication. Look, there's some Vicks. That's over-the-counter. That's from Target. There's some rubbing alcohol. I don't know what all these fucking boxes are, but Dee Dee was diabetic, so maybe it's diabetic stuff. But, you know, a picture is not always what it seems unless you really take a good look at it. So when people see this medicine closet, they're like, oh my God, that's awful. But if you really take a look at it, it's not really a bunch of prescription medication. Yeah, that's Dan. Okay, I've got to end this. I let time get way too far. But that's it. So hopefully we'll hear something about Nicholas's appeal. I'll be checking throughout the day to see if there's any update. And I don't know. We'll see. Maybe next time we can show the Facebook messages with Nick and a friend of his that he was talking about Gypsy to this friend on, I think it was Facebook. Anyhow, I got to end this. So I really appreciate you guys being here. If you watch this on the replay, thank you. Please hit the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. And yeah. Everybody have a good rest of their day. Where is my outro? Okay, you guys have a good rest of your day. Have a good rest of your week. I will see you soon. And with that, I'm out of here. Bye, guys. A disclaimer that I don't have all that much time today. Got a little bit of time today.
This beat is going to drop in 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's fair game, right? Bye, everybody.